Hi you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Araceli, aka Chelly, and today on Chelly's Mental Wealth, I visited the Latinx Podcast Therapy's first event. It was her first year anniversary since she started the podcast. Her name is Andrea, and I attended her event last week. It was really wonderful meeting these great women who are trying to break the stigma and trying to do the same mission as what I'm trying to do, is breaking the stigma within cultures and communities, and specifically within our Latin culture. There is certain things that we need to kind of overcome in order for us to learn new skills and just ways to just better our mental health. I really encourage you guys to watch the whole video. The topics that they talk about is how religion and therapy is okay together, and she also goes into talking about the history as to why we kind of fell off on integrating both, and why, you know, where we fell off of it, and why it's important for us to really think about the importance of trying both or doing it at the same time, you know. So, and then the last thing that they're also going to be talking about is they have another guest named Z, and she's going to be talking about just dealing with family members who are constantly telling you why you're not married, you know, when they do that stuff, and how to deal with it and how to just cope with it and process it on your own so it doesn't affect your mental health. So hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's a little bit different. I'm going to be wearing something different because I completely forgot to do an intro. So I'm going to stop talking. Let's watch the video now. Let's go.
Thank you all so much for coming. I'm so intimidated still, but I don't have as much anxiety as I did earlier. I know that I was expressing it so much via social media, but I got so many supportive messages from many of you, so I'm very grateful for each of you for being here and trusting Latinx Therapy throughout this whole year. It's been an amazing journey. I did not expect any of this when I first started it about a year ago. But it's been beautiful. The community has really come together, and that's been one of my main goals, to bring people together, because I'm finding so much power in us uniting and really sharing our stories, our histories from our ancestors and our current living situations. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now, intimately, with Yanira Pena, with the topic of when God and therapy are both okay. So, Yanira Pena is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's the founder of New Beginning Family Counseling and Training Center, Inc. With over 9 years of experience as a marriage and family therapist, she's a graduate of California State University, Long Beach, and specializes in MFT, which is marriage and families. She has her own actual private practice in Whittier and Tustin, and her actual areas of expertise are trauma, grief and loss, and she works with couples. Personally, I know that she has experience with advanced training actually with emotionally focused therapy, because she was in a training with my fiance. We found that out afterwards. She's an interactive solution-focused therapist, and her therapeutic approach is to provide support and practical feedback to help clients effectively address personal life changes. She's trained in EMDR, Prepare, Enrich, Discerning Counseling, and as I mentioned, EFT. And she integrates all of this and all other methodologies to offer a highly personalized approach tailored for each client. So I'm so thankful to have you here. Thank you so much, Yanira, for being here.
Thank you, Audrey. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to talk on such a sensitive topic, I think, but such an important topic to our community and just in general to the mental health field.
Yeah, it's really important.
And I'm glad I'm not the only anxious one. When therapy was developed in the 19th century, that was around the same time that liberalism came about. And liberalism was a big threat to religion. And because there were ideas that liberalism and therapy aligned with each other, for religion, therapy became another threat. So it became something that was not openly accepted from the very beginning. And unfortunately, on the other end of the spectrum, or the other side of this, for psychology, the founder of psychology, Sigmund Freud, was also not a big fan of religion. So he grew up Jewish in a Jewish family, but he considered himself atheist. So he didn't believe in God, and he highly criticized religion as it being people's illusions and way of controlling the outside world. So that just created again a bigger division between therapy and religion. Throughout time, there has been other on both ends, on religion and psychology, there's been other people that have actually advocated for the opposite, advocated for the importance of both of these to be incorporated. And I think thanks to that, now we're having a conversation today about this, which is really important, especially for our community. And that there's still work to be done in this area for them to be incorporated more smoothly, but at least the conversation has begun.
Yeah, for sure. And we're definitely going to talk about what we can do as a community to push forward this union of both of these topics. So what have been common misconceptions about going to therapy as it relates to religion in our cultura?
Yeah, so I'm going to first talk about two, I think, key factors that contribute to some of the misconceptions, and I'm going to make sure I stay on track with my notes here. But I think one of the big things about religion in our culture and the Latino community is that it's highly valued, and it's seen as a big source of support for us. And when there's issues going on, the Latino community turns to their church, turns to their pastor, their priest, as the first source of support outside of your immediate family. So some statistics is that 83% of Latinos claim some religion affiliation, and 59% believe in God and believe that God is important in their lives. So I just want to give you a couple of statistics on supporting the fact that religion is really important for us, for the Latino community, and that we rely on it as a big support. Another thing is, other than church, we also will tend in our community to turn to, maybe if it's not church, a healer or spiritual people that we believe in for support. And another thing is we're very protective of our religion and our beliefs and our privacy. So going outside of that is a big stretch in our community. Another key factor to this, to the misconceptions that I'm going to speak on, is the stigma around mental health. I'm so grateful that Audrey has created this space for us to shed light in mental health in our community, but unfortunately there's a high stigma around therapy being for crazy people, for the locals. And that's, that plays a big role in people not, think about it. In religion, you could pray either at church, or you could keep it private. You don't have to step out of your comfort zone and talk and accept and even acknowledge that there's a problem. So I think that's a root of some of this that I'll be talking about. We're also very very big on being self-resilient, on us being able to handle it all, being chingonas as I was talking about it earlier with somebody here, and we take a lot of pride in that. So again, stepping outside of that is very difficult, and stepping outside of that to speak with somebody, a stranger, is a big stretch for our community. 20% of psychological disorders discovered in Latinos will, even though it's difficult for our community, they would rather go to a doctor and maybe complain about a stomach ache or headaches, when in reality it's the root of maybe a psychological disorder. And unfortunately, only 10% will actually see a mental health specialist. And I kind of lay these out first because as I speak on these next misconceptions, you'll see how these you could hear these in the background and almost loud and clear at the forefront when I speak to the next points. So one of the and these are not in no specific order, but one of the misconceptions is the lack of faith. So I have personally experienced this. I have recently had within the last year have had some concerns around fertility, and I stayed for a very long time in my little sacred place and prayed about it and thought I just need to stay faithful and stay hopeful about this, and I'm a big believer in prayer, so I just need to keep on doing this and I've been in therapy for sure on and off for many years, fortunately. And this was not something that I was ready to speak to my therapist about. This is not something that I was ready to go and make an appointment and discuss, because I was one of those Latinas that felt, if I do that, does that mean I'm not really trusting in my God? Does that mean that I'm not staying hopeful and I'm not praying, not leaving this up to prayer, which I highly believe in? So this is one of the misconceptions that many Latinos struggle internally about there being, if you go to therapy, that may mean that you're weak in your area, in your faith, and that's, again, when you think about self-resilience for our community, that's not something that we take lightly. Another thing is betrayal of faith. So there's this misconception that if you are, I don't know if any of you have heard this before, I've definitely heard this, I don't believe in therapy. Yeah. So this idea that going to therapy means you have to believe in this whole new belief system, which is far from the truth. In therapy, actually, we're, as clinicians, we are not supposed to tell you what to do or what to discuss. We work with you to discuss, to develop a treatment plan and work on whatever you're wanting to talk about and work on. And if that's religion, that's your choice. It's not our choice. But there's this misconception that going to therapy will mean that you would almost have you will be going into a different belief system and betraying your faith, which is a big misconception. This is also speaks to, I kind of spoke on it earlier, that in our community there's still a struggle to believe that mental illness exists. There's still sometimes we think that even, and I don't mean this in any negative way, but maybe that I've heard this growing up, that maybe there was like a brujeria done on you, and that's what it is. Maybe you're possessed and you need to go to the priest and get prayed over, and that's, I grew up hearing this, and therapy was never something that we discussed or that we acknowledged as an issue, mental issue. I never heard that in my life until I grew up, until I got into this field.
And also, I've heard a lot, if someone explains symptoms of depression, in which we as mental health professionals know that it's depression, but family members will take them to a curandera to get the huevo.
Yes.
A limpia, yeah, or get prayed, or go take them to church, in which that's okay, but I feel like it goes hand in hand.
Yes, and I'll definitely speak to that. The next one is that just simply therapy and religion don't mix. There's a misconception that there's these two separate lanes, and you have to pick one, and that makes it really hard, because just like when we have a physical symptom or an injury, I could imagine it could be really hard for you to continue your life with a broken foot or broken arm and not see a doctor. But again, speaking about mental illnesses not being acknowledged in our community, going to therapy is just not something we naturally think of as an option, or it's just something that there's a strong misconception that you just don't mix those two together. You don't have to have you don't have to pick one or the other. You could have hope, you could have faith, and you could also, be sad and if you're depressed or have anxiety over stuff that's going on in your life, that's okay.
Yeah, and often the lane is picked because historically we're taught that that there's a big stigma with going to therapy, and that there's something wrong with you, and it's just you're not enough. Basically, you're just not enough, and you're not doing enough for yourself, and X. The list goes on and on about like all the shame. Basically, we get shamed and lectured for wanting to help ourselves. We're seen as selfish, but because religion has been in our history for so long, that's why that's more accepted, but we're working towards accepting and evolving mental health to integrate it into our families. And by doing that within our current households, we're breaking the cycles. I mean, look at us all now. I don't think they were doing this 20 years ago. Even that, 15 years ago, maybe some people Latinos were starting it up, but this is amazing. This is how we do it.
I think that I wouldn't be able to do justice to this talk if I didn't keep it real. So I'm glad for the opportunity, and I think that I've been able to see the light and see what happened in a different perspective. And I owe that not only to my faith, my religion, what I grew up with, but also to therapy. If it wasn't for both of them, I don't think that I could easily stand up here and talk about something so sensitive and difficult. But I am a strong believer, like Audrey, in this movement of shedding light on mental illness, mental health, and to talk about it. And religion is a big piece to my life, so I can't not incorporate those two.
Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and bring out Zeahlot Lopez, and we're gonna go ahead and take our seats. Welcome. Come on in. All right, so let me go ahead and introduce to you Zeahlot Lopez. She's going to be talking to us about the misconception of y el novio, the common Latinx question that happens at family parties, any family gathering. And I think she's going to sprinkle in also the y la novia here and there. So Zeahlot Lopez is a dually licensed psychotherapist, licensed cosmetologist, and entrepreneurial coach, helping humans to rebuild their spirit. Guided by her intuition, clinical training, life experience, and some luck, she helps individuals and families lead a happier life. Aside from providing therapy to better the lives of her clients, she enjoys coaching entrepreneurs and women of color who are looking to increase their emotional intelligence. She is also a keynote speaker, passionate about educating individuals on the importance of mental health, and has spoken at many universities, nonprofits, and various corporations in Los Angeles. Most recently, she has been featured as a speaker on Univision, the Therapy Reimagined Conference, the STEM Conference of Los Angeles, and the Los Angeles Philharmonic. Additionally, Zeahlot has had a vast amount of experience working with Latinx individuals over the years, working in private practice in Sherman Oaks, and previously with an agency contracted by the Department of Mental Health in the San Fernando Valley. She, who trained under the Latino Family Program at Phillips Graduate Institute, has a well-developed understanding of how to work with Latinx individuals in therapy to effectively elicit wellness for the client. Thank you so much for being here, Z. How are you? Oh, and her nickname is Z, but her full name is Zeahlot Lopez.
Yes, thank you, Adriana.
Yes, of course. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just get started. Z, I think what many of us want to know is, or maybe I don't know, is how does the enmeshment or collectivistic nature of our culture affect this topic? As Latinxers, we know that we come from a very collectivistic nature in our households, in our community, in our families, historically all around. Everything is para la familia, everything that we do. So how is this topic affected by that?
Yeah, it's super interrelated, and just being very family strengths based in my practice as a psychotherapist, I can say that I hear it all the time with my patients. all the time. I think humorously what comes to mind is when I would visit my abuelita, she would always tell me, I was 20, 22, 23, and the years went by, right? And she's like, mija, ¿para qué estudias tanto? Tienes que estar casada. ¿Qué te pasa? No tienes hijos. Ya estás vieja. I was 25. Now I'm in my 30s, and that's all she knew. So she was putting that onto me. That's the cultura, that was the traditions in the family, and it was so enmeshed. At one point or another, I really had to take a look at myself and say, how much is my family and how much is me? And I think that's the real answer there of providing a safe space to others, whether it be in therapy, coaching, whether it be in workshops or just friends, saying, hey, where do you begin and where do they stop?
That's very, very interesting. And I guess how long did it take you personally to assess this, analyze this, and go through this process?
Yeah, it's been a lot of work. I'm very transparent, so I'm very big on it. I'm going to tell you to go eat the tacos. I have to try them first. So I'm very transparent that I go to therapy every week for the past 5 years. I've been doing the work. How can I come correct into the room and be there and hold space for these women and men if I'm not doing the work myself? And it's taken a lot of back and forth, even with my own family members, being Latina, being educated, being single, handling my and paying my bills for them to be like, okay, she's got this, she may have something there. Last year I went on a trip with my mother, and it was very telling. We had a great time. We went to Miami, we're on the tour bus, and she goes, mija, te tengo que decir algo. And I'm like, oh, she didn't like the food. ¿Qué me va a reclamar? I'm all getting ready, and she says, your ovaries have dust. Tus ovarios tienen polvo. Te tienes que casar. And the entire bus is quiet, and they're just looking at me. And this dude in the back is like, ma'am, I will take care of her dust. I got you. And there I'm humiliated. But from that, I took it to therapy, and I'm like, this is what happened to me. And then I really worked on it, and I had to own it and say, this is my mother's perspective. This is her life. This is her story. But this is not mine. And be in it and be okay with it. And transparently, I even have family members here today that are still struggling with the idea that being female is okay. Being chingona is okay in my culture. For a long time, I felt shame. I would dim my light because it was too bright for others. And I've been working through that, little by little.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's so funny, too.
I can't make it up. This is real.
No,
I should do stand-up. Yes,
probably
real situation.
Test it out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're already a cosmetologist, now a comedian.
That's right. Add to layers. In case therapy doesn't work.
It's working for you.
That's right, it is.
So, is there a gender difference with this topic?
I think there's a difference. However, I think there's different layers to it. And I'm also going to throw in there the added layer of who it is we choose to love, who it is that we want to love. So there's also the LGBT, that there's this assumption that if somebody's, higher in their age and in their education and their love life, that automatically it has to be the opposite gender. Not necessarily. I have so many wonderful professionals in my practice that they happen to love the same gender. And then you get this family that's like, ¿y el anillo para cuándo? But maybe that's not what they want. Maybe it is. Maybe they want children. Maybe they don't. So there's all these assumptions.
So because of these assumptions, I can only help but wonder that they're afraid of something. So what is it that they're afraid of?
For the longest time I was resentful and I was angry, estaba enojada, and I was like, ay, ¿qué les pasa? ¿Por qué no me entienden? But then I realized I shouldn't be angry. I should be welcoming and open and curious. So this is what I started to do. When I started to do real inner work with my own therapist, I started asking the right questions. So when I would get the whole like, mija, your ovarios tienen polvo, I'd be like, well, mom, what are you feeling right now? Are you feeling that I won't have a legacy for you? Is it that I won't take you to Target with my kids one day? Like, ¿cuál es la preocupación aquí? Like, I got you, Like, we have Mani Petty Day. And then I realized one day she broke down and she's like, no, mija, I just want you to be okay. At the end of the day, your ovaries have dust is a secret message of I love you, I honor you, and I want you to be okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really powerful.
Took me a while to hear that, though.
I'm sure, yeah. Mm-hmm. So in terms of that gender difference, how would messages like that, or I guess what I really want to ask is, what are some things that males or our LGBTQ community hear? It's not y la novia, y el anillo, or maybe it is, but what are some other common sayings that they would hear?
From family members or la cultura?
Yeah, from society.
I think that the universe and people alone are mirrors. So I believe that the universe, the world, is like this disco ball, right? And as it circles around, there's a whole bunch of mirrors and you have reflections. And I think that every single person that I meet is also a part of me and I am a part of them. They are reflections. They say that what bothers us, irritates us, or nos enoja de otros is really about ourselves. So what I'm trying to say here is whenever I hear some comments from other people towards family members about, ay, no van a tener un bebé, ya se casaron, and then they just wait, but they pass it tortillas, right? It's a reflection of themselves. Are they afraid the family won't be passed on? Are they afraid that the family heirlooms, la cobija del bebé, or the last name? I think that was a big one for me. And one thing that I'll say is, currently I have an MS behind my name, but I also have a Miss in front of my name. And I happen to be one of 3 daughters. I traditionally won't be able to pass on my last name, but it's a choice. So in regards to the question, I'd say everybody hears something different, but it's what we choose to do with it that really matters.
Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting. And I'll just self-disclose that on an opposite note, my fiance and I are getting married in October, but we're choosing to, because I can't get rid of my last name. Like, I love it so much.
And then B's though.
Yeah. So I am adding his, but he's adding mine as well. So I guess it's
modern.
the modern way, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that could also be a response. It has to be, though, between the couple, what they are ultimately deciding on an individual basis. I stated my opinion, the other person stated their opinion, and we made a decision. We haven't even discussed it with our family members, though. Well, more so our parents. But we also come from a much more open-minded household, because we don't have all of my members specifically are in Mexico, and there are none left in Guatemala for us. So I feel like individuals who have more family members get more opinions, more things get passed down. The chismes also go around a lot more. So I'm privileged in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm 100% with you, and something that I've been practicing that helps me hold my own self accountable is this. Yes, chisme goes around in the family, but then I have to look at myself like, okay, Z, hold on. How much do you participate in the chisme? And little by little, I have a mantra, and the mantra is, all I have to do today is drink my water and mind my business. That's it.
Yeah.
And if I can do that, then I can come correct to others. It starts with me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So as a mental health professional, what have you noticed to be the mental health effects of people who are often told, y la novia, y el novio?
Yeah, there's this added pressure and layer, and what I can speak to mostly is just the experience I have between seeing such amazing, wonderful, badass women in my practice. Like, they're just rocking it in every single way. And they come to me, and then they share in vulnerability, and they're just crying, and they say, I just haven't been able to have a baby. I have everything going for me in my life. I can't find the one. Even men that tell me, like, I want to be wanted for me and not what I bring to the table as far as materialistic or money. So I think what really comes up is the expectations of others versus ourselves. After a while, we start hearing the inner voice of others come up over and over and over, and we have to reframe those thoughts.
Yeah, very much so. So as a community, how can we combat this belief about single people in our culture?
That's a great one. There's this shirt I see very often. It says single and fabulous. And I know you guys have seen it. I know you guys have seen it in LA. And I think it takes a very strong person to be okay with that. For a while, even in like my 30s now, when people would ask, like, well, what box is it? They place us into this box. And it bothers me because then not only do you have the age bracket, but then you have the like single, divorced, like, what are you? And I also have to like make my own little box, right? Like building an empire, check, you know? I really had to just rearrange and let people know there's other options.
Yeah, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
Yeah. And another thing that is coming to my mind is that in our culture, we are often, because going back to the first question, we are such a collectivistic culture that we consider others before we consider ourselves. So one of the things that we have to teach is that it's okay to prioritize yourself. Going back, it's okay to be a little selfish, especially about your life. Very much selfish, because in the end, you're going to have yourself. You know, you have to be happy with the decisions. Another thing that comes up is that people are, you know, thrown into blind dates. because of that pressure, because there's expectations that you have to be with someone in order to be happy. Being by yourself will be too lonely, and that's another fear that our families have, that we're not okay with ourselves. But that's the household that's everything that they've known. They've known to be in
Collectivism.
Yeah, in the community. When I go to Mexico, everyone lives very close. Everyone's always with each other on weekends, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. We don't have that here, though, so we're okay with being alone. I don't like too many people. I prefer being by myself. I'm an introvert.
It's too people-ish outside. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's more of the historical pressure where this topic also stems from. Yeah. Well, Z, those are all the questions that I had for you. Thank you so much for answering them, but I know that this was a very hot topic, so I want to go ahead and throw the mic out into the community, not literally. Anything else you wanted to add before I do that?
Yeah, I think you hit a great point earlier in just like the I before the we. I think, that's one of the main points in my practice that I work with. It's single young professionals where everything's just popping for them except just that part of their life. And if they're okay with that, be in that space with them. And if they're not, help them find the better way. I'll share this transparently that I had to make a very big decision last year in my private practice to no longer see children. I'm great with kids. We rock, we good. But I don't see kids anymore because I personally believe that my true work is with the parents. If there's better human beings that get into a unified relationship with compassion and love, that choose to have children and raise them, then we'll have a better community. We will have a better generation. But until then, I see no point me personally working with children. And if we don't have the I before the we, there's no healthy marriage there. There's no healthy commitment. So I'm really big on that, knowing who you are before you engage in that long-term commitment.
That's so true. On a personal note also, because I feel like professionally, I got those boundaries. But I just started catching myself with one or two. Oh my gosh, I even posted this. You couldn't even hear it in my post. I'm like replaying it and I'll share it. So I just caught myself telling my friends, like, hey, do you want to date someone? I got people for you. I've made a lot of new friends. And
What's up, Cupid?
Yeah, I know. I've been like trying to be Cupid. But a lot of the responses have been, one of my friends, she's religious. And so she says, like, I feel like, when God has a plan for me and that person will come and I don't want to force it. And I respect that answer. This is my very, very best friend. Another person, they're more like, hey, yeah, bring them on. But then when I start giving the, answering their checkbox, they're like, oh, actually, no. But I'm catching myself doing this, like pushing people towards one another. And I've had to work really, really, really hard to just pause myself. When I get that thought, I'm like, filter it, Adri, just filter it. Like, don't do it. This is what the ancestors want.
Yes.
Yes. I would encourage everyone to listen to one another if you're doing that, if you're doing anything pushy. And it comes from love, obviously, but ultimately the message is historical. And we want to break these cycles. This is where it starts. Awareness.
Yeah, and just verbal language. Like, my absolute favorite that I always get is like, why are you single? Well, because I am. That's it. Until I'm not. It is what it is.
Yeah. When I proposed to my bridesmaids, I proposed in a big box because I had on the flaps pictures of us, and inside was a huge balloon. So when they opened it, it popped out and it said, will you be my bridesmaid? So, but I didn't tell them that it was going to be a proposal box. I told them there was a little man inside. And again, that was me, telling that. I was like, there's a little man in there. I only said that to my single people. But to the ones that were taken, obviously, I have that strict boundary. So, yeah, it's just, we have to be cautious of that, of those behaviors, of those languages, because we don't know how they're impacting them. Obviously, when I realized this, maybe not obviously, but I did, going back to my last topic, so for those of you listening, because there's many of us here, the topic that I did with Yanira Pena, we spoke about going back and correcting our experiences. That's what I'm working on, always. I take 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, but then I take 10 steps forwards when I recorrect my experience. And I ask, like, I said this. How did that impact you? I was, a little bit brainless and I didn't realize that I was doing that. But I want to know now. I want to hear you. And we talk about it. And I feel like healing happens that way more so and a lot quicker. Not that we want it quicker, but it just from my personal observation.
Absolutely, and then not only that, I see it also from the professional perspective, right? So my favorite is when I get a couple that comes in, right? Or I get a mama that's having a difficult time at home with the kids, and she looks at me and she says, "¿Tiene hijos?" I say, "No." And then, you know, she'll look at me again and she goes, "¿Estás casada?" And then she'll look at my hand and I'll be like, "No." And she goes, "Oh, pues, ¿cómo me va a ayudar? How are you going to help me?" And I say, "Perfect." And I'll ask her, I'll say, "You know, I have a gynecologist and his name is Michael. He's a man. He doesn't have the same parts and equipment as I do, but he's very professional and he knows exactly what he's doing, and I go to him every single year." And that's it. That's the conversation. It stops it right there. So I use a little bit of humor, very serious, and then she gets it and she's like, "Oh, no, pues sí, pues sí." And that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, we're good for a year now, right? And it's re-educating people, but not being so like offended, or like I don't hide it anymore. Like years ago I used to be like, "Oh no, what am I gonna do if a couple comes to me?" Like, we're good. It's thriving. Yeah, it's just honesty. It's either we vibe or we don't.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you so much, Z.
Así como viniste tú te puedes ir igual. So let's get somewhere no one else can see you.
Don't worry, I'll cut that out. Alright, so this is the first time I'm actually talking in front of the camera in front of my friend. Go in front, Jennifer, because it makes me feel embarrassed. But it's good exposure because I have to get used to talking in the camera and people being around me. So I just
Watch your
finished.
step.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have a long dress. So we just finished collaborating and mingling at the Latinx event podcast live. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting and I learned a lot. I think that a lot of the stuff that both of the ladies said were completely true. I don't know what you guys think. Please comment down below and let me know. And hopefully it'll motivate you guys to look into the stuff that they talked about and maybe change your perspective about certain things. Did it change your perspective?
Relate.
I hope you guys could relate to that because I did, especially with the religion part. I grew up like hating going to Catholic school because I was forced to.
I still like them.
But what's interesting for me and my case is that like therapy actually is pushing me to religion. It's doing the opposite now. Isn't that weird? Like
I mean, I feel like people need to be spiritual, but I don't feel like you need to follow a religion.
yeah, that's true.
Like, you could be good with God, you don't need a religion to tell you how to be good with God. I feel like when people put God in categories, that's when it becomes a problem. But God could be whatever you want it to be.
Touche.
It's a higher spiritual.
Higher being. A higher being that put therapy there for us to use if it's needed. End of story. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys later, and please do not forget to subscribe if you guys are new to my channel, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you guys know when my next video will come out, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.